ladies and gentlemen, from all over the globe, we are super happy and super excited to be in Morgantown, West Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Visiting Miss Caitlin over at Happy Crafters.
And hit the applause. I like it.
You don't have to tell me when to do it.
Okay,
You don't have to tell me when to do it. I know how
but
to
you're
run the board.
handling this. Okay, this isn't about us.
I know. Hey.
And just so you guys know, I can also reach those buttons too.
You're listening to the Decor8 podcast with Patrick Ali and Chad Poole.
When you first started, you know, what did our social media platform look like? Did we even have one? Or
we kind of did.
Yeah.
I mean, and to be fair, we were a really, really small team.
Very small.
Yeah.
So before I joined, there was, I think, like 4 people.
Yeah.
And it was one person doing all of marketing.
Yeah.
And she tried to do the website stuff, and then
Yeah.
she tried to have social media and all that.
Let's take on a lot of projects.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so when I took over Facebook, I think we had maybe 400 likes on it, and then Instagram maybe had 23 followers.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, so it's basically like a fresh start.
Yeah.
And again, this was before Facebook. Don't dock me, Zuckerberg. But this was before Facebook had the crazy business algorithms that were just like, now, you know, I mean, because when we used to do a video or post something up on social media, it was like instantly viral.
Right.
Like it was crazy.
Right.
And, you know, and then I think it was 2018 was when they started making it a little bit more of an arduous process for Facebook business posts to go through.
Yeah.
But it was it's funny too, because one of our first milestones that we literally made a video on, excited about, was 800 likes on Facebook.
Nice.
We're over 62,000 likes now.
Yeah, I think you've done something right.
You've done,
but how excited we were at 800
I mean,
likes.
yeah, I'd be happy with
that was huge.
Well, and there was remnants that Brett was actually did some of our social media, and if any,
from everything I've read, you've got a really strong relationship and you give back quite a bit, particularly on the education side of things. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it comes from, obviously, I enjoyed, obviously, love about kids, obviously, is giving them opportunities. And then my partner, obviously, she's really gotten really deep into it with the schools. She's done, well, we have Adopt a School. And so with McKinley Elementary, which is an elementary, I was literally one day out running around lunch that time, and we're like, we should adopt a school. And I was running around, and I'm like, what is that? What school is this?
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, that one's this, and it's a little bit underprivileged. They don't have this, this, this. I'm like, well, it's like a mile from work.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we got to help. Like, we can do something there. And so she came up with the original ideas. Every Friday we go in and we read to the kindergartners. And so not a lot of these kids don't have opportunities to read and have people read to them.
Yeah.
And so that was the start. Really just started there, and we're like, okay. And then I'm like, what else can we do for you? Like, what's going on? And they're like, I'm like, none of these kids have any like shirts, you know, like with the school pride and all like that. And I'm like, I remember going to school, like, you know, school pride is important. So that was the next thing. I was like, all right, well, we're gonna make shirts for everybody.
That's really cool.
And then every kid, and they're like, every kid, and I'm like, yes. And I'm like, in the staff.
Yeah.
I says, and so like every Friday we go in, and like, and then you see all these shirts and everybody else wearing them. I'm like, so
that's
it's
awesome.
It's fantastic, and you see it out, and people like, you'll see it out in the town now and stuff like that. And so we're like, that's kind of the step. And then we're like, then the next part was we're like, all right, what else you guys need? Like, well, we don't have any mats for our gym floor and stuff like that. And we're like, well, we can do that.
Okay.
Like, we can help there. And really, that's kind of fed itself. And then now, you know, right now we're helping with masks, we're helping with everything, and just really focusing that piece on the education part of how we can do more. Our team goes in and they will do the reading, but they'll help with like the school carnival. They'll help with Dr. Seuss Day. I mean, they get very involved. Yeah. And so it's fantastic to see is like we get like 9 o'clock. You guys are going and going to school and do
See
this.
you later.
And
we got your shift covered, and
we're just like, hey, go. And so that's really what's kind of the cool part is seeing that come back all full circle. And then we've done it long enough where now the 5th graders are out, and so we've done a whole, you know, kindergartner through 5th.
And where does that come from, do you think? Well, I mean, obviously that's probably dipping way, way back into your history, but where does that come from, that need to give, or that thought to give to them?
I think it came back from the time I went to a YMCA camp, and I remember hearing like how some of the kids couldn't go to camp.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why not?
Right.
Like, I'm like, why can't they? Like, everybody should go to camp.
It just didn't register then.
Yeah. I'm like, obviously I wasn't old enough. And I'm like, but why can't so-and-so down the street go to camp?
Yeah.
Like, I want him to come with me to camp. And they're like, well, he can't afford that. And I'm like, but we need, like, why? And
We
so
need
I
him there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it stuck with me, like, for the years. And then it's finally, as I was in a position where we could use the company and obviously give back, I was like, we got to do this.
Yeah.
Like, this is
really
important for us. And so we've developed a foundation, a fund to make sure we have the funds available.
That's awesome.
And then we pick those things and targets that we want to do.
We've always had cut files. Some are for sale. But then I think because of COVID, we tried to increase that and bring them weekly. So we've always had them, but I think we've really taken on a concentration because we've seen the demand for it, and it eliminates a lot of time for our customers, and we give them commercial rights so they can sell their products.
Oh, that's
too.
awesome.
A lot of times, it's funny that you'd mentioned that real quick before we go to break. In the print cut world, when we're talking about putting a cut line on something or designing something yourself, or a customer gives you a raster image and it's very pixelated and you've got to do all this time in it, half the time I would just say, listen, just pay the $20, outsource it, have it done. Because seriously, if you look at your overhead of your shop, you keep the lights on, whatever you have to do, if you've spent 2-3 hours playing with a file,
Oh, you can get lost in that world forever.
you're lost in that world. You're losing money at that point, really. And you could be doing other things, right? And getting more things done. So, but that's really cool to be able to drive that customer. Like you said, you're a one-stop shop. So if I'm just getting in this industry and I can get a free cut file and all my equipment in the same place, like that's.
And prior to this, also come in and rent and learn machines before you even purchase them.
Kudos to you guys. That's awesome.
That definitely works. Now, is it, and this is, especially in this time right now, I noticed that everybody on social media, and it's more of an opinion-based thing, but everybody on social media is ramping up their content. Is it in a way that you're realizing the efficiency of like utilizing that time? You have this time now that you're not stuck in the day-to-day in a building, in an office space, just like us, we're in an office all day, that you have the time to do it? Or is it more of a way to stay relevant? Or do you ever have that fear of like relevancy in the industry? Like, is somebody going to forget about us? Are we going to lose a following if we don't? Well, I know obviously everybody hopes not, but is that something that you think about on a day-to-day basis? Or is it just kind of go with the flow? And if, obviously the people that like your content are going to keep obviously following your content.
Yeah, I think what we do is we really value our customers' opinions, so we are taking that feedback and we are really listening. I know some companies say that, but we write it down.
Yeah.
We have a whole chart where it's like, oh, this person asked this question today. Where can we include that so that question is answered all the time? We have a text message service, so if they're in the middle of a craft and they're like, oh, good God, what button do I press? We'll answer them quickly.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then
you almost said that's awesome too.
I said that was
Jinx.
Also.
That was also awesome.
That's also.
No, that's really cool though that you actually have a text message service that's live.
It is awesome. We can say it simultaneously. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
it is during our hours that we are open.
What's wrong with Alaska and Hawaii? And,
right.
At
midnight.
Yeah.
But honestly, if we see it and our computer is open on the weekend, like we'll answer.
You'll do your best.
We will try. And then I will say, to go back to your question, one thing that I will say that brings us relevant is our affiliate program. Yeah. So I work with those ladies as well, and those could be crafters, makers, influencers, but they all have a social presence themselves, and they love our product. And we do not want them to share any of our stuff if they do not stand behind it. So we will ship them samples before, and they're like, yeah, loved this, or maybe not this one.
Yeah.
And they'll give us reasons why they didn't like it, so then we can fix that product per se.
That's a really cool business model.
We get it in their hands, they test it out, and I'm communicating with them all the time, and then they can help promote us as well. So that's how we try to stay as relevant as possible too.
So we finally started carrying the Caesar product. We became a distributor. And the funny story, my first introduction to the Caesar team members. All right, so it's just random day, and all of a sudden Matt comes in and says, hey, we have a visitor today. They're going to talk to us about the Caesar product. Again, I still had no clue what heat transfer vinyl was at the time. I was still in this mindset of rhinestones. Oh, cool. This is to create a t-shirt, right? I had no idea the other types of process and solutions out there in the market. So Kathleen walks in the door.
Oh, shout out
My
Kathleen.
first introduction to Kathleen.
Yeah.
Yes, shout out to Kathleen. Actually, she messaged me yesterday, actually. So Kathleen, how are you? So Kathleen walks in and she goes straight to me. And the first thing she asked me for, obviously we introduced each other and do the whole spiel. But the first thing Kathleen asked me is, can you get me the pizza box? And of course, it just happened that we literally had pizza the day prior.
Oh my God.
And I go to the garbage can and I pick up and you can ask her this all happened. I go to the garbage can and I grab this pizza box and I give it to her. And she gives me just the Kathleen look, like, I don't know if he's serious or if he's joking.
Yeah.
And if he is joking, it's not funny.
Yeah.
I wasn't joking.
Yeah.
But, so that was my first experience with Kathleen. You know, she had a laugh. She had a, but it was a good introduction. Who would have thought 7-8 years later, this is the path where the road takes me, right? But
started with Caesar. So how long have you been here?
Coming up on 4 years.
Okay.
So, yeah. And, you know, as you guys mentioned, a lot of us know each other and have been around the business a while. And Johan and I were friends before he came here. And Caesar North America was even started. And we've just stayed in touch. And it was just one of those things. We always got along. We competed against each other for a number of years, which was fun.
Yeah. I was going to say, Johan's not a competitor at all.
Yeah, no. Not even in the slightest. You know, it's one of the things that we have in common. Neither one of us are worried so much about winning, but we hate to lose.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just, that drives us nuts. Yeah. So anyway, it was just one of those things, and we had talked and we had discussed my coming over and, you know, and bringing some of my experiences to the Caesar team. And it didn't happen. And then a couple of years later, we talked again. And then finally, it was the right move. But it was tough for me just because, you know, I'd spent 20 plus years at this other place.
Sure.
And it's hard to walk away, especially when it's part of your DNA. It's
becomes
your family.
Yeah.
You know, it's what you know. There's a certain comfort level in that job security, and there is uncertainties anytime you change. Yeah. And you guys both know that. You both just recently changed as well.
Yeah.
So
Guy to the right of me.
That guy who's off camera, I see him. Patrick and I see him. We've met him. We had a very
He's
interesting
my imaginary
conversation.
husband here.
We had a very interesting conversation before you walked in. All good things. But how do you like Michigan? And how long ago did you move up here?
Well, so it's been a year and a half, but I grew up in Texas, went to Lubbock, then lived in Houston, went to Louisiana, and then moved to Oklahoma. Like I said, I ran that branch, and I actually met him at a trade show in Chicago.
Nice.
Oh.
And, you know, it was just kind of weird timing, didn't know, whatever, and we did long distance, and then he conned me into moving up here about a year and a half ago. I had a great first winter. Michigan summers are unbelievable. I can't even explain it to anybody.
It's a pretty hot one this year.
Well, I mean, growing up in Texas, it's not really. I thought it was pretty great. Yeah. But, you know, it's funny. Michiganders are just as snobby as Texas people. It's just not as well known.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Everyone knows, like, Texas, we're so proud.
Yeah.
Very
Michigan
proud.
is just as bad.
I was watching a show the other day. I forget what it was, but it was a sitcom. It was a good show, but they said something like someone was talking to somebody else, and they were in Texas, Lubbock, wherever, and someone said, "In the name of Texas," and I'm like, you guys love Texas so much to say like in the name of like, you would never hear like in the name of Michigan. I look down at you, whatever. But like that the passion is there for sure. Now we're
heard about all this stuff going on. I mean, at such a young age, did you really understand what was happening?
It didn't hit me till like December of last year what had really happened.
Really?
Like, yeah, because it was very like surreal and like just kind of felt like, and I genuinely thought it was a virus. Like I didn't think anything of it.
Sure.
Because you're so young and naive, you don't think the worst of things or
Right.
the reality of things.
Yeah.
So I thought it's just a virus. I'll get over it, whatever.
Then she never cried, she never really questioned anything. The first night she trouble
You
in
just
the
said she was
hospital.
at the Disneyland hospital. So what are you gonna do?
That's right. That's right. She woke up the first night at like 3 a.m. because this was like at 1 a.m. we got admitted, and at 3 a.m. we left the room. She was connected to a pole, but we walked out of the room to go get ice or something. They have a snack bar with any snack you can think of in it. So we went down there to get her something to eat, and the nurse was like, "I thought y'all left. You can't leave your room without telling us." And we were like, "Oh gosh, here we go. We've already started trouble in the hospital." And Peyton's such a rule follower. She was like, "Oh no." Oh no, and I was like, "It's okay."
Yeah.
So in when did it finally kind of kick in for you? That obviously this was going on. When did it really? Because I imagine the news initially is kind of it. I don't want to say it goes over your head, but at the first time you think everything's normal, right? You think everything is fine. When did it finally sink in for you as a parent to know that okay, there's something serious going on?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
It was whenever she went. So that morning, the following morning, she went back for a bone marrow biopsy. It was just me at the hospital because her dad was at home with all the boys, and I was in this waiting room, and I'm like thinking in the back of my head, like this is not like how are we gonna do this? We live an hour from this hospital. We both have full-time jobs.
Right.
We don't have family that lives here. Clearly people do it every day.
Yeah.
That was what was going through my head. And then the reality hit whenever I was in this waiting room waiting for her to get her bone marrow biopsy or hip bone biopsy. I saw this mom over in this corner just crying. And I was like, that's me. Like that's what reality we're living in. And like all these people in this waiting room were all waiting for these children to come out of these procedures to tell them if there's, something was serious, something was mild. So it really didn't hit me. I don't think it hit me then that it was serious, and then I was a puddly mess in my waiting room by myself. Kind of like this aha light moment that it was real. But
no. So obviously, you took this just poor little kid and brought him in under your wing.
He was pretty sad.
Like a stray cat.
There's gotta be at least one story of like something just dumb that Chad has done.
Dumb.
Not intelligent. We'll call it that.
I got to be careful because there's a lot of stories I can tell about this guy that could get him in a lot of trouble.
Come on.
There's one that is just absolutely fun.
Okay.
So this guy had actually.
I like the way you put that. Absolutely fun.
This is a fun story, and I think he'll laugh at the end of it too. We had built up the tech support team to the point where I chatted. I think at the time you were the manager of it. You were team lead for me, and we brought in a new guy, Matt Jokinen.
Yep.
Shout out, Matt.
Yep.
And it got kind of competitive sometimes when you were traveling to a cool place.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. You know where this is going.
Yeah, I do.
Oh God.
So Chad, being the team lead, said, "Well, we've got this call to a cool place out in the middle of Montana."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't even remember the town that it was in.
Great Falls, Montana.
And they had this place out there, some bar that had a lady named Piano Pat.
Pat.
Sip and dip.
The Sip and Dip.
Piano Pat. You showed me the video.
Yeah.
Of Piano Pat.
And at this bar, they had a wall that went to, I guess, an aquarium that they had mermaids. Women dressed up as mermaids swimming around. I think it was Maxim said it was like the top 10 bar.
Yeah, actually, it was at that point. It was. I think it was GQ named it the number one bar in America for that year.
Really?
So this guy says, you know what, I'm the team lead, and Matt needs to get his qualification one, so I'm gonna go on a ride along with him.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take one for the team, and I'm gonna go out to the middle of Montana.
Yeah, God forbid anybody else want to be able to do that.
Yeah. He just took one for the team. Yeah, really.
I did.
On the way out, this is fabulous. How this whole thing started. They hit a deer in the rental car.
Oh my God, dude.
Well,
doesn't call me right away. It was 30 minutes later or something like that. He calls me up and he goes, hey, by the way, we're on our way. Everything's going great. And we hit a deer. And I'm like, did you call the cops? Did you file a report? There's damage.
Don't tell me.
No, man, we left the deer on the side of the road.
What had happened was we were driving,